She fainted on a Zoom call and woke up to her divine assignment. What if your rock bottom wasn't a detour, but the divine invitation you have been waiting for? In this episode of Unleashed and Empowered, I sit down with the incredible Maryanne Katsidis, energetic leadership strategist, former corporate high flyer, and the visionary behind the HeartLed Leadership Academy. We go deep into Maryanne's extraordinary story of transformation from corporate burnout and near-death collapse to answering the call of her soul and guiding the world's most powerful CEOs into embodied energetic leadership. This isn't your typical leadership chat. It's about sacred resets, nervous system intelligence, leading from alignment and not performance, and how true power begins inside your body. If you've ever felt like the way that we have been taught to lead is broken, this is your invitation to rewrite the rules. Maryanne is here to remind us that the future of leadership won't be managed, it will be felt. Welcome to Unleashed and Empowered, the podcast for visionaries and heart-led entrepreneurs who refuse to shrink or settle. I'm Alice Taugs, your host, guide, and fellow traveler in the messy but magical journey of entrepreneurship, blending spirituality, energy, intuition, and AI to amplify aligned business and personal power. Through raw conversations, both solo and with inspiring guests, we explore the moments that change everything, helping you trust yourself, redefine success, and create with courage and ease. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Let's dive in. Welcome to Unleashed and Empowered. I know it has been a couple of episodes since I've had a guest, but this guest today is very, very special. Maryanne. Maryanne was supposed to be our very first guest on Unleashed and Empowered. And unfortunately, it was the only time where the internet decided to not work 100% and the recording didn't come through properly. So we thought we would wait a little bit. And here we are back again. Maryanne, welcome to today's podcast episode.
Thank you so much for having me back. I feel privileged that I get to talk to you like this 2 times.
Yes, I know. Who knows which tangents we're going to go on today. But we just said we're going to let this flow intuitively because that's what worked really, really well the first time around. Now, The way that I like to start each and every podcast episode is give listeners a little bit of background, who you are, where you're from, what some of your sliding door moments were in life, and how did you end up doing what you're doing, which is just so incredibly fascinating.
That's a lot to talk about, but I'll start at the beginning. So I'm an energetic leadership strategist, and I'm the founder of the HeartLed Leadership Academy and the HeartLed Changemaker podcast. But I work with high-performing CEOs and leaders who've built success, but they feel a deeper calling, and I help them recalibrate their leadership. So I integrate nervous system wisdom, strategic clarity, and sacred presence so that they can lead from alignment, not just ambition or performance. And so, as I just mentioned, my work isn't about performance hacks or productivity tips even. It's about strategic leadership at a frequency level so teams thrive, decisions feel clean, legacy feels like an experience, and it's felt. And so ultimately my belief is that the future of leadership won't be managed, it will be felt ongoing. And so it's getting people into their bodies and into their emotions, into their accountability and their integrity. So how did I get started in all of this? I come from a corporate background, and so I've worked in very large corporates and have been on the receiving end of cultures that have been toxic, and I've been under some really great leaders and managers, and also some not so great ones as well. And then you combine that with my kinesiology background. So I was a kinesiologist for 8.5 years. And so it's really my 2 skill sets that have come together in this unique way, along with my marketing background. So the marketing and strategy, the leadership background and the kinesiology makes for a bit of a superpower in a way. And so I've just let myself build this beautiful business. And my mission and my absolute purpose is for global transformation in the corporate sector. So I want to see large organizations and corporates working for the highest good of all. And yeah, that's me, I guess, pretty summed up.
And sliding door moments. I love talking sliding door moments. We've all had them. It either was, a health scare or divorce for some of us, or some other moments in life where the universe just spoke so loudly that you couldn't help but listen and hear the call and follow whatever the universe told you. Talk to us about some of those sliding door moments that you've had.
Well, so I feel like I've had a lot of sliding door moments, but I think there were two very big prominent moments in my life. The first was when I moved out of the corporate sector into the natural therapy, the kinesiology side of things. That happened because I had just had four miscarriages. I had just broken up with my ex-husband. He was cheating, it was a whole thing. And that I'd reached 10 years working for the corporate that I was with. And I knew with all the grief combined with the back-to-back miscarriages and the marriage breakup and hitting this milestone of long service and everything, I just felt like I needed to change things. And I'd already been receiving kinesiology as part of my healing and my way of coping through all of that pain. And I ended up moving to Melbourne. I moved from Adelaide to Melbourne and decided that I just needed I just needed a fresh start. I needed it to be away from people who didn't know me. Adelaide is a very small place, but on top of that, my ex and I work for the same organization, and so I just felt like everyone knew, everyone was inside of what was happening for me, and I just needed an exit. So much to my family and friends' dismay, I decided to move to Melbourne, and I took another corporate job initially. And it was while I was in Melbourne that I realized, whilst having kinesiology, that I wanted to start studying it. And then, as part of the studying, I realized it was time for me to give back and help people understand that they could break out of the cycles that were similar to mine, and that they didn't have to stay in the pain or in the self-torture or in the chaos that they were in. And so that changed my trajectory somewhat. And so 8.5 years as a kinesiologist is a long time. And I burnt myself out pretty significantly. And so, because I was treating it like a corporate business instead of treating it myself and that business lovingly. And so I lost a bit of my joy for it really. And I had an opportunity to jump in to a strategic secondment role for a virtual reality company, if you can believe
Oh,
that.
wow.
And yeah, so random. And that felt really good too. But outside of that, I realized there was a part of my skills that I wasn't utilizing and that I'd forgotten about, and that was the strategy and the marketing side. And so I knew that secondment was only going to be 6 months. It was circumstantial that it was only ever going to be 6 months. They didn't have the funds to keep me on. And so it gave me another pause to think about, okay, what next? And then COVID happened, and I jumped into a place living in Melbourne in lockdown of I've got to think of something somewhat from survival, but also here's another turning point. And
Mm-hmm.
so I started a marketing and social media business, and that combined with a strategy that felt really good. And ended up moving back. The first chance that I got, I moved back to Adelaide, and everything seemed to be going really well. My business had completely taken off. I was feeling really proud of myself. I don't really like the word resilience, but I was feeling really comfortable in my skin. My network had regrown. Like it just felt good. And I wasn't sure that it was going to be like that, being 10 years away from my hometown. It was really like starting again. And so I was feeling really good. And then my health started to deteriorate. I had some female things happen, and in truth, I was working a lot of hours. I didn't think that I was working a lot back then. I didn't think that I didn't really think anything was wrong, pretty much. I knew that my health was deteriorating, but I just kept on going. I knew how to do that. So over the course of 12 months, I hit a place where I had become anemic, but I didn't know. And so I was on a Zoom call, pushing myself that morning, knowing that I really wasn't well. I was not well enough to be on that Zoom at all. But in my work mode, it was keep going, and I wasn't really thinking about my nervous system. I wasn't thinking about me. I was thinking about the people I was going to let down. And on the Zoom call, I fainted, and I landed. Woke up on the floor of my office and realized that I had fainted. And lucky someone I knew was on that Zoom, and they called an ambulance. And when I got to the hospital, they had told me that had I not fainted that day, I would have died, because I'd been experiencing a lot of blood loss over the course of 12 months. The doctors, the other specialists that I was seeing didn't pick up that I was becoming anemic that badly. And so it was fate, really, that I fainted. And obviously divine intervention. I wasn't meant to go. But that turning point happened while it wasn't the fainting. It wasn't hearing that I had become anemic. It wasn't hearing that I needed a double blood transfusion and then an iron infusion. It wasn't even hearing that I nearly died. What was the turning point was while I was lying there getting everything sort of refilled, if you will, I was Googling the metaphysical reason for being anemic. And
Wow.
I realized that it was about not experiencing joy. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks. And obviously, because of my kinesiology background, everything comes back to what does it mean on a metaphysical level? Your physical symptoms are the last port of call for the things you've been ignoring. And so I was like, okay, I haven't really, in the last 12 months, have I been feeling much joy? Probably. I think it's been fine. Have I been really ignited? No. Has my ego felt satisfied because I've been earning the money and I've got the clients and all the things? Yes. Does it feel joyful? No, not really. Do I feel like a worker bee? Yeah. And so I thought, okay, let's look at that. But what caused the anemia was a fibroid. And so, all right, let's look up what the fibroid meant. And the fibroid was, a lot around joy again, a lot around anger, resentment, frustration, and feeling. It was just deep grief, mostly just deep grief. And so I was like, okay, so what's really the cause of the fibroid? And then I continued to deep dive, and all of that in and of itself, while I was lying on that hospital bed, made me realize that whilst things looked really great on the outside, my soul was still depleted. And if there was ever going to be a time to do a full hard reset, now was the time. I was 47, and it was just time for that. So I took 2 months off, and I needed that 2 months for healing. I knew there was an operation coming up and all of these things, but I I needed to put myself back together and honor that. And during that 2 months, I petitioned my guides, my higher self, God, all the people that I feel are part of what I believe. And I just laid it down and I said, I'm willing to surrender everything that's in the way. And I
Mm.
just want you to tell me what it is you want me to do. How do you want me to serve? What is it that is going to be fulfilling for me, but is going to create a legacy for this world? How can I leave my impact? And it's not a simple question, and you have to
No.
be prepared for the answer. The answer isn't um the answer isn't no, just keep doing what you're doing. It's not that. And it turned my world upside down, and I had to be brave, but I made a vow, and it was a vow and a commitment to myself and to spirit, that I would do whatever they said for however long it was going to take. And I wasn't going to question, I was going to continue to challenge myself to deliver. And that's how this work has come about. And it's why I'm so passionate about it. It is, it is my everything, but not, it's not my, and I've spoken about this recently. It's not, I've wanted it to be part of my identity, but it isn't. I'm a vessel for the divine. I'm here to transmute and teach and guide these big leaders, these really important, influential leaders, how to lead from a different place now. And that's how that's why the global transformation is so prominent for me,
Mm.
because this is how the world changes. This is
Mm.
it is being brave to do something different. And I'm a bit of a unicorn still out there. I'm talking a lot about energy, which people think is woo woo, but it's so not. I mean, people used to think meditation was woo woo, and they don't
Yeah,
now. So
exactly.
eventually, I'll be, I'll hopefully become mainstream. Maybe I'll get to see that in this lifetime. Maybe I won't. That's not my business. My business is to keep doing what I'm being guided to, and I'm here to be of service in whichever way it is meant, and it's
Mm.
exciting. But they were the two turning points that changed my life, and I'm very grateful for both, even though they were both pretty painful, one more than the
Yeah.
other. I feel very, very grateful.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that in so much depth and detail. I feel like that's really going to benefit a lot of listeners because I know myself, whilst I didn't experience near death, we've all had those turning points and we've all had those moments where we ask, is this it? Am I with the right man? Am I living in the right country? And I feel like for me, that came close to 38. I feel like a lot of women that I speak to, also from an astrological standpoint, that's sort of the time frame where the first whispers are starting. From a really practical point of view, from your experience, when you ask that question, how did the answers come? Because it's not like you listening to, a different voice and the different voice is telling you this is how this is going to look and this is the path forward and this is the next step to take. So in your experience, and you obviously working with leaders on that energetic plane, how do some of those answers come to people?
Yeah, so for me, it was being still. It was spending a lot of time keeping my nervous system calm. It was very much a being, you have to be open to not controlling what the answer is and not demanding that it all happen right away. And it didn't. Initially, when I sort of set the intention and posed the question, it wasn't really in all of it didn't come in with it like in a nice little booklet that I could just, flip the pages. It wasn't really like that. And it wasn't, someone in words specifically saying all these things. It was in my meditation, mostly in my meditation, where I was getting the visualization, where the things that I was seeing were how all of my skills come together, how I was seeing the future me in that work, and all of those little nuggets slowly started to come together. And it probably took about, I think it was about 4 weeks, but only because I was giving it so much time and attention. Like I was being very intense. I sort of put myself in an incubator over that 2 months, and it was sort of the later part of that second month that things started to get clear. And then once you sort of have the vision, the how to do that and what needs to happen next was being sort of drip fed, and it still is in a way. But I sort of had the overall picture, and then it
Mm-hmm.
was okay, let's work back from there. And so I am very intuitive. I've spent many years cultivating that. It's a skill set that I was already strong from when I was a child, but being a kinesiologist and spending time in that space, I really spent a lot of time cultivating my clairaudience and all of my other clairs as well. And so it that helped. But the meditation, being quiet, being still, journaling, and calming my nervous system was the combination that created the space for those messages, those light bulb moments, those ideas to come through. And I knew that um, those light bulb moments was the downloads that it
Yeah.
was like, okay, this, see how this matches that original vision we showed you in that meditation. It's this. And so what happened though was I had a marketing and strategy business, marketing strategy, social media. That was my jam. And then I had to start from scratch. And so I still have all of those beautiful marketing clients. They're long-term legacy clients. But even with that work, I am doing this new piece with them in a way, but I had to rebuild my website from scratch. So all of a sudden, marketing Maryanne had to die. I had to let her go, that identity. And that's a really tough thing to do, you know. It's not my sense of security. What about if I don't attract any more clients? What about if this work that doesn't even exist anywhere else? I haven't seen it anywhere else in the way that I do it. Are people going to think I'm crazy now? Am I crying crazy? Maybe I have lost my mind. I didn't. It was like a trust fall, and in a way, it still is because I haven't fulfilled the big goals that I want to fulfill yet. And so, whilst I'm seeing traction and I'm making good momentum and everything is happening organically and beautifully, it's still trust is the predominant thing. And from the beginning when I was petitioning, just tell me what it was. I had to trust even that the answer would come, and on the days that everything was quiet and they were giving me nothing, which was sometimes, I just had to trust that I had to be still and just let things integrate in, because it's all well and good having the information, but then you have to go and do it, and that
Mm.
takes time. And you have to, there's sort of like an internal fight because there's an ego death that happens, and you got to hold your own feet to the fire. And because I know what happens when the universe knows, spirit, God, whoever it is that you talk to, when they know that you need to do something and you don't do it, things get harder, a lot harder. And so I had to keep fighting I had to keep pushing past the resistance, but also doing things differently, right? Given what I'd already been through, I had to be compassionate with myself. I had to be gentle. I had to understand a new way of working, a new flow. And as part of um, having this new reset with this work and this business, I had to really think about how I wanted to work now. If this was my you know second life, my this was it,
Mm.
my second chance at life. How did I really want to live? And so I've built the business exactly as though it is come to its fullest fruition.
Yeah.
And again, it is a gift, and not everyone gets to have that opportunity. I feel privileged, absolutely, but I've worked very hard to get to this point, and hard emotionally.
Yeah.
I'm not working hard physically now, but emotionally, it was there was a lot to undo, and still, I mean, until your last breath, you're always, undoing
It
and
doesn't
letting
stop.
go of things. No.
Yeah, yeah. At what stage came human design into your life? Was that all coinciding with each other? Because obviously you're a projector in human design, so you're here to be the guide of the guides, the seer, rather than the doer. And obviously there is a whole lot of deconditioning that has to happen from that original hustle mentality that we're all ingrained with to then unravel, undo, and realize that you are worthy, that you don't need to hustle, and that you're wired differently, and that the world needs you differently if you step into that. So, when was that moment when you realized you were different from a human design point of view?
Do you know, it was only recently that I realized it was about 12 months before that near death experience that I sort of I started to put my details in to find out what I was in human design. Yeah, it was about October, November the year before. And then it was probably 3 or 4 months later, I was gifted by a friend my whole profile in so much detail. The document is like 300 or 400 pages. It's very, very
Wow.
thorough. And then that 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 really was that was sort of like a mini turning point, but really it was an unseen turning point,
Mm.
realizing that I was a projector. It came as a bit of a shock to me, and it also brought up a lot of grief because I knew that had been working in a way that didn't feel that good, but I was trained in that way from a kid. Even watching my dad work the way that he worked, it was the entrepreneurial side and the hustling side. It was inbuilt. Plus, I'm Greek. It's that sort of part of the culture as well, and so it uh it was very confronting, realizing that I had been operating in a way that didn't make sense for me in any way, shape, or form, and that it was almost like asking me to rethink about how I was going to work. But it was that during that 12 months that my health declined.
Yeah,
And so
gotcha.
it was like my body in that understanding and awareness of I don't have to work like this anymore. My fight to keep wanting to, right up until that day that I, nearly died, pushing myself when I wasn't even meant to, that it was the internal fight. My nervous system and my soul were having a fight, and my ego mind, my business mind wanted to fight as well. And so that learning and that deep dive around being a projector was challenging because it's not the norm, and that
Yeah.
that also meant I had to do things differently as well. But given that I had spent a lot of time integrating over that 12 months and really understanding, even though I was slowly making changes and mostly around the boundaries. Um, the It wasn't until that 2 month break when I was wanting to know what really I was meant to be here for, as a projector, we're visionary. So it was all right. I'm just surrendering to how I'm supposed to be now. Let's just try. Let's see, and so my consideration about how my business is built, how I work with clients,
Mm.
the structure around scale and all of that has already been put into place with the human design understanding, the deep
In
human
mind,
design
yeah.
understanding. So, and that's what I mean, and that's what I was referring to earlier. How my business is now, whether I've got 700,000 clients or whether it's a few clients here and there, it doesn't matter. My work and my energy remains the same. The
Yeah,
way
gotcha.
the background structure is so thought out with my human design in mind. And that was such another beautiful gift. And it's not attaching to the label. It
Hmm.
is just actually understanding how you work best. And it becomes easier to communicate with other people when you are honoring yourself. And
Yeah.
that's why I love human design.
Hmm. Thank you. You have talked a lot about nervous system. And
Yeah.
so obviously a lot of us come to a point where we realize what we're doing is no longer working. And then,
Yeah.
we might be pausing, we might be getting the downloads, and then the manifestation starts. And whether you consider manifestation from a neuroscience point of view, or whether you consider it from, law of attraction, from a spiritual point of view, it really doesn't matter. If you don't have a regulated nervous system, you can't be very effective in manifesting. And I've just read the book Mind Magic by Dr. James Doty, and he looks at
Yeah.
manifestation from a neuroscience point of view, and he talks so much about nervous system regulation. What is it that you found worked best for yourself, and what is it that you use with your clients to get them back into their body? Because that's what we're all trying to
Yeah.
avoid. We're all trying to avoid being in our body.
Yes, it is the common thread for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Emotions can be big. They can be really big. I like to watch 2 and 3 year olds who are going through their first experience of big emotions. I connect with them, their playfulness, but they just feel the feelings, big
Hmm.
or small. They just let themselves experience it. And so the first port of call is actually acknowledging where you're at. And it is a hard thing to do when you have been traumatized, when you're, some of the leaders that I work with carry shame programs, they carry a hell of a lot of guilt.
Hmm.
They carry the I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And that they've been on the receiving end of some harsh things as well. And so it is really about pausing to get real. That's really the first step. And it's kind of twofold because when you're working on your own thing for manifestation, say you want to manifest some new clients or a partner or whatever, sometimes those manifestations don't happen so quick. And it is one because it's sort of multi-pronged. One is because your system isn't ready to receive it in its capacity. So somewhere in your subconscious, and this is why I love kinesiology, somewhere in your subconscious is saying, I want this. Your conscious is saying, yes, I want this, but your subconscious is saying, I don't deserve this. I'm not worthy of this. My life's going to change for the worse if I receive this. I'm not allowed to have this. All of those things. I'm going to be judged if I have this. That's a prominent one when it comes to money in particular. But those that can be, sometimes it's the nervous system. Sometimes it is about divine timing. So
Mhm.
whilst you might want it now, it's not going to happen now. And with my work, with this legacy work, I don't know when that big bang for me is going to happen, when my goals feel fully fulfilled. That could be tomorrow. That could be 7 years from now. That could be after I've already passed away, like Dolores Cannon.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know who that is, but
Mm.
her legacy work, the lady's passed away. She's more famous now than she was when she was alive. And I
Yeah.
hope to see my stuff come to fruition before then. However, it's not up to me. And so you've got the nervous system side of things. You've got
The
the
timing.
divine timing side of things. And then there's the other part where there is there is an alignment about whether your heart and soul really want it. So it's not so much about your nervous system, it is about heart and soul. And sometimes, like when I started the marketing business, I felt that work was really great because I set an intention to only work with heart-led leaders and purpose-based businesses. So of course, that's why I've still got those clients because it's still in alignment with this other work. However, that business was built out of survival, and that is another part of it. So if you've got these beautiful big intentions, maybe some of the things that you've been relying on for income or identity or whatever has to fall away. And so that you have to do an assessment of all of those prongs. So with leaders, for example, we start with getting real and we have some very honest conversations about what is going on for them. I don't even want to know what's happening in their organization or with their culture or their people. Not interested. They're in an incubator with me for 6 months, just me and the CEO. I've no interest in anything else with HR or anything else that's happening there. And it's not from a lack of caring, but my priority is the CEO. And it is making sure that trust is built, integrity is built, and that takes time, but it is a deep dive into some very heavy work that is thoughtful and patient and compassionate. And it is a space that I hold for them to get back into their body. And so some of the specifics around that work are EFT, some kinesiology. I've got a very big toolbox of different things that I can use with clients. And there's the somatic exercises as well. So literally getting them back in their body, making them get on the floor to anchor in. The breath work part is important as well, but it is a combination, and each combination is different because everyone has different things that bother them. Some CEOs don't really have that much. Then there's the gender side of things as well, because the masculine brain versus the feminine brain, they want and need two different things, and the speed of that work is different as well. So what is for one leader isn't for another, but it is creating a unique blueprint for that CEO to surrender, to work through their stuff first so they can hold the energetic frequency and integrity in the organization first. So it is felt when they speak and announce to their organization that I'm coming in to do this work, they already know that the CEO has been through it first. Then that builds trust, and the rest, the rest kind of takes care of itself. But a lot of the time, that work, what happens with that work is they come in at senior leadership level and down. The CEO doesn't get included. And that's because they're meant for me. And that's fine. And it's not that those coming in at that level doesn't create change, but it's tentative change. It's not getting into the roots of things. And so, it is really understanding what is it that's misaligned. And when you think about the large corporates, a lot of those CEOs are in organizations that they didn't build. It's not theirs. They've been placed there. So it might be that energetically they're not aligned. Maybe it's that they're still in the shadow of the person that was there before them. Maybe there's some other factors that are personal that is influencing, and so it's about deep diving and understanding what is creating this internal chaos and how that can translate, externally, and that it is new and it is hard for them, but we're getting there. The world is changing. This, like I said, meditating, somatic exercise, breath work, ice baths, that used to be like a woo-woo thing, and it's not now. So that is changing, but that's generally the combination, but it is unique to the individual, and that's why my work is not for the mass. I don't need it in numbers, and also because I'm a projector, I don't want to work that way, but I've got structures in place to create transformation and change so that I don't have to be the one where I'm teaching people to do what I do. But those big organizations, it's very personal, and it's important that they have the care to surrender and to heal as well.
Mm. Now, I consider us as the people who are building the bridge. We're building the bridge from the 3D business models to the 5D business models. Do I know 100% what a 5D business model looks like yet? No, I don't. But I feel like I'm already a lot further than a lot of other people are. But for me, the mission is to kind of walk alongside the people that are here to listen to that call early and to start working on that transformation early on. I can imagine that some of those really big CEOs would be coming to you not really knowing what to expect, but just knowing something is off, something needs to change, and then being open to the transformation. Give us some insights into some of those early conversations. Like, when do you let the cat out of the bag?
Oh, I've already let the cat out of the bag. What you see is what you get. Exactly how I am on social media is how I am in person. There's no, there's no tricks or anything like that. It is all of the content, whether it's the podcast, whether it's the courses, whether it's my socials, whatever my newsletters, whatever it is is energetic frequency of me to them. And so when they connect with me, they already know that I'm the one to help them. So those inklings, like what I say, how I speak, my passion, that resonates with them. It doesn't irritate them, otherwise they wouldn't hire me, but it resonates. It inspires them. It provides a level of hope that maybe, just maybe, something could change.
Mhm.
I have clients who I'm working with who genuinely trust in my wisdom, generally believe and trust in my knowledge and wisdom, and they see me. And as a projector, that's especially important. And so understanding your human design is a big part of that, right? Because that's how you know that you're feeling valued. So because I am truthful and integrity is my number one value, so when I apply that into everything, then they already know this is where the benchmark is. So they
Mm.
can't come in with shenanigans, and they can't come in, and they're powerful, they've got a lot of money, they're very successful. There's a lot of behaviors that would intimidate a lot of people, but my history and skill set have has been it's almost like I've been in training for this my whole life. And from all of my relationships, particularly with men, it has been I'm able I'm able to communicate with them in a way that is respectful, and it
Mhm.
is considered, but it is also I can challenge them, but they know that it is coming from a place of genuine care. It
Yeah.
is not because I want to wound them or hurt them. They already know that. And so the initial conversations, um, it makes me laugh because before I connect with the CEOs, I can feel the energy of them being petrified. Like they're in a little like little cats in a hole, like they can see me there, they're a bit scared. They want to though. They want to. They want to talk to me. I know. I can feel it. And it makes me it sort of it inspires me and motivates me to do more, which is really great. But then when the conversation does happen, they can feel it. I'm present now. I've done my research, but I'm also open. I'm open to hearing all of the things. There's confidentiality clauses. There's all of the things that protect them, protect me. There is a safety there, but also the fact that they know that I get to spend that quality time with them solely for them is another it sort of takes things to another level because I know that they can talk to me about anything. whether it's personal, professional, sometimes the two mix, sometimes one affects the other. So
Of course.
it is, um, it is already, it's already valued, it's already sacred to them. But I
Mm.
do have to, I don't hide the spiritual side of things because I figure if they've seen my content, they know that it's there. But I'm also not using it in a gimmicky kind of a way. I'm
Yeah.
very practical. So it's not hold these crystals and let's just hope that the energy changes in your organization. No, like I'm not doing stuff like that. Doesn't mean I'm not into it, but that's not what that's not
What
what
they
is going to
want.
work,
Yeah.
and it's also not what's going to create change. That's not where the issue is. The issue is what's happening energetically. And so the tools with kinesiology is very practical. In fact, when I started studying kinesiology, it's very clinical actually. I brought the spiritual side in when I became qualified. I created my own method, so much so because I had a client come in and said, "This is not even kinesiology. I've had kinesiology before. I love this, but this isn't it." And I said, "I know. I need to change the name." I'd pulled out the parts that were working for me with my clients and what I felt created the most change. So that's how I am with these CEOs. And so slowly over time, they're asking me more about things, but I'm showing them on practical levels, with statistics even, and the neurological side of things, the science back side of things, how to create that change and why that's important. So at the beginning, is it a bit clunky? Yes. Do I hold back at all? No. What you see, like I said, what you see is what you get. You're in or you're not, and so um, it is it is magical at that beginning phase. It really is. To me, it's my most favorite because I've seen the vision of what happens when I work with them. I'm just showing them, I'm just lighting up the pathway, and seeing them grow and transform and seeing their organizations and their people um change and surrender to this new way is, yeah, it's words can't describe it.
No, that's exactly right. Words can't describe it. It's very exciting. Now, when you went through this big transformation, this big change from marketing, social media, Maryanne, to now energetic strategy, marketing, working with the big CEOs, what did you have to do to get confident and comfortable with the new language that wanted to emerge and wanted to come out of you so that you had this natural attraction and this magnetism to obviously call those aligned CEOs in? Because I know from myself, I had a completely different life before I started my business. And for such a long time, I thought, when I put out a post on LinkedIn versus Instagram, I had to quote it. I had to morph it into something that was a little bit more subtle because I had all these followers and I didn't want to sound or look weird. Now, luckily, I have let go of a lot of that stuff. Luckily, these days, I'm like, take it or leave it. You can unfollow me if it doesn't resonate with you. That's perfectly fine. What were some of the shifts that you had to go through, or some of those, new identities that you had to step into, old identities you had to let go of? Talk to us about that transformation.
I think because I had already changed identities a few times. So I went from corporate Maryanne to kinesiology Maryanne, back to corporate Maryanne, and then for a little while there I was artist Maryanne as well. And so I paint. I'm a creative. It's just one of the things. But I sort of already understood that process because I'd challenged myself to do that. I was never really afraid to do that. But when it came to language and being seen and putting myself back out there in the full expression and truth of this vision of me in its fullness with no hiding, it did take a couple of attempts. So the
Mm.
first attempt, I channeled all of the content myself. If I was talking directly to the CEO, what did I most want to say? What did I want to explain to them? What was, looking back through all of my journals and everything, I just pulled it together and put it onto the website. But I was still hiding. There was
Mm.
still uh, my corporate identity was hanging on like a cat on a curtain, just like holding on so much, and it was like, can you please get down? No. But it is, it was just, it was, it was something that had to be done. And I happened, you happen to find these things. And I saw this post from Kylie Patchett, who's one of my favorite humans, and she had written a post about good girls don't something like good girls don't create revolutions. And I
Oh,
was like, oh no, oh God, I know I have to do this. And it was literally the last day of her online course. It was a three, no, it was 10 days, 21 days, something like that. I can't remember now. Anyway, it was quite a few days, but it was called Being Seen, Be Seen. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. Well, wasn't that a shock to the system in lots of different ways? Because as part of that, I had to we had to do an assessment of how we were putting ourselves out there. So
hmm.
because I'm a good worker bee, I've got that hustler training. I went through my entire website, and over the course of 5 days straight, I transformed the entire website. And um, because I realized through what I was learning through her, how much I was still being a scaredy cat. And I
Yeah.
couldn't be a scaredy cat. That was what was causing distrust in the
Mm.
connection with these new clients. If you're not presenting yourself in the truest version of you, your clients feel it. So potential clients can feel it, but also from we given integrity is my number one value, was I really being truthful if I was still talking in this other language and not being my true self? And
Wow.
so I transformed the entire website, and I at the end of the course I asked Kylie I said, I just wanted you to know how significantly you have changed my life. Take a look at my website. And she did, and she said, oh my God, I cannot even express how exactly that is you. And
Wow.
um I felt so much gratitude because I needed that push, but it was kind of like one final push to get
Mm.
me to be brave. And then though, websites is one thing
Oh,
because
yeah.
nobody knows it's there until you start talking, until you start the social media side of things, and that is different again. And so then you've got static posts,
Mm.
and that's fine. Static posts are fine because it's just your words, but then you have to actually speak, and that has taken some time to cultivate. But for me, I know I'm a disruptor. What you see on Instagram is exactly the same content as you see on LinkedIn. I don't change nothing. I haven't got time to. I don't care to. I prefer Instagram over LinkedIn, but my clients aren't on Instagram. They are
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. And so my most of my posts stand out, my static posts in particular stand out because I'm using imagery that is not a corporate event. I'm not in corporate really. It's not that I'm not polished but I'm not in super corporate outfits.
Yeah.
I'm not using stock photos in a way that is beige. That's my favorite word, beige. It's not bland. I'm using imagery that is thought provoking. It's some
Yeah.
of them are a bit ethereal even, but they need to know that's who I am. It's a way for them to again to build trust, but it's also a way for me to stand out. And that is that's something that you have to get okay about because again, I am disrupting there. I want to disrupt there. And so no one else is posting images like I am. I don't care. I love that I am. If my best advice to the people listening is if it turns you on, the work that you're doing, if it turns you on and you love it, just do it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it
100%.
because that's what makes you magnetic. That's what attracts people to you. Just do it for you. Don't do it for the outcomes
Mm,
because that is also not up to you. We were talking about the prongs before, your nervous system, the divine timing. That is not it. But if you are doing it for you because you love it, then how can that be wrong?
exactly. Exactly. But I think one of the nuances that I've only started talking about fairly recently, it was after a significant Reiki healing session, where we were talking about past life stuff. And I know some people have insights into what has happened in their past life, some don't. But if we think about this, we talk energies, we talk unseen, we talk subtle changes. Not that long ago, women and people used to be burned for that. And so I truly believe that there is still a cellular memory within all of us that tells us that what we're doing is unsafe. Because I keep thinking, like I'm quite a courageous person these days, but showing up on social media, exactly as you said, the study content, no problem. I can go all out. That's no issue at all. When it comes to some of the video content, I'm still in that process of getting really 100% comfortable with it. Because, yeah, like I know that I was killed for some of the stuff that I used to do back in the days and or past lives, I should say. So of course there is that hesitancy, and I think that's also where that nervous system regulation comes back in because we can beat ourselves up over the fact that why is my business not where it's meant to be? Why is my business not further along? It's because we need to do both the external work as well as the internal work in order to fully show up and in order to be of highest service. And that takes time.
Absolutely. And so for me, I am in this challenge for myself personally every day. So when you are doing this work, you have to be humble in that you are growing. The perfectionism needs to go out the window. And I give myself that grace. But to get to the point where I can give myself grace and not judge myself to oblivion, which is my sort of baseline, if you will, most of us, I I every day do work to make sure that my subconscious brain
Mhm.
understands how we're going to be operating that day. So in the morning, I will do some EFT, I will do some kinesiology, I will do some breath work and get into my body. So I will do some movement, some like really gentle movement, so that I can feel how my body feels.
Mm,
Every single day, that happens as a ritual.
mm,
So when you were talking before about what does 5D business look like, to me, that is what 5D business looks like. It is about
mm.
honoring yourself in the morning and getting yourself centered for the day. And that could be just as easy with meditation. Meditation is a
Yeah.
very quick way to do that. But for me, my brain is very tricky. I hide things in the back of my brain. There are programs. I wake up with doom on my mind. And I think I've been sleeping for, 8 or so hours. How am I? Why are these the thoughts that are immediate? And there's no reason. There is, like My brain feels like it's being chased by a tiger, but I'm not even in those circumstances, not even close to those circumstances. And yet there it is. And so that's not a good place to start. But if you're thinking about, what does a 5D business look like? What does a 5D leadership look like? What does that frequency feel like? It's this. It is getting into the body, getting into the feelings, acknowledging them, and then releasing. And that's why the EFT and the kinesiology is really good, because it's not, have you ever listened to Esther Hicks or anything
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
before?
Big
Yeah.
fan.
So,
I've actually managed to manifest my redundancy with Esther Hicks.
yeah. Well, she's amazing and brilliant,
Mm.
but she talks about you can't go from panic and worry
Hmm.
to pretending with affirmations. You have to glide yourself into like a neutral place to
Yeah.
get to that rampage, as she calls it, where you're like really in the energy of having it. And that's how manifestation happens, right? So in the morning when you're waking up with these thoughts, even when I wake up and feel good, there is still a way to go from good to amazing, because I feel a
Yeah.
bit tired. I'm going through perimenopause. My body is a bit slow in the morning. It takes a bit of coaxing, there's a lot of different things happening, but it is, and then you've got the world things happening that bother you as well. So
Yeah,
we'll just
exactly.
acknowledge that too. But you start there. You start with you, and then you can start to build on top of that. But if you are trying to go from waking up and doing a quick meditation because it's a task and not a ritual, when you're
Mm.
doing these things because you're doing it from a performative and outcome perspective, not because it feels sacred to you, then how are you ever really going to be anchored into that 5D? It's kind of like putting on a costume. You're pretending you're not
Yeah.
in it. And so I think about this, and it is a challenging thing to do, I'll be honest, because even when I'm getting ready or making my coffee, eating is my worst one. When I eat, I'm in a hurry. It's just like, get it done. I've got to get back to what I was doing because I'm too excited and I've got 100 ideas. But it's like, hey, whoa, sacred time.
Be
Be in it,
present.
be anchored in it. And that's and so on my whiteboard, I've got a whiteboard and I change the statements depending on what I'm going through. And so now it's got, does it turn me on?
Mm.
Am I eating? Does it feel like it's igniting something with me? Am I choosing these things because it's a habit or because I actually really love it? Am I doing it because I think that I should be doing it?
Yeah.
I've swapped some of my routine around in the morning, um, so that I don't feel like I have to, but it feels good. It brings me a lot of joy. Having things organized in the house turns me on. I love it. And so, but it gives me space for ideas. So
Mm.
everything fits in together. So it is very much around, like, what are you doing for you that actually makes you feel full first, but your
Yeah.
soul feel full. Your nervous system feels like, okay,
Yeah.
now, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And when, I'm lucky I don't have kids. Not lucky, but I don't have children, and so that's not a consider. I don't have that as a consideration. I'm not up
Mm.
at 5 o'clock in the morning or being woken up disruptively during the night. It's me, and it's good. But I understand that some of our listeners will have children and they have to be on the go, and time for them is low. And CEOs are, most of them are up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and they are on right until 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is asking them to work differently, to approach things differently, to lead differently, to speak differently, to try things in a new way that they wouldn't try before. And I think as humans, whatever past life we've had, there is a soul remembrance of living that way in our truth that is coming back. And slowly our world is changing. And there are, um, there are things happening where there is going to be more of a sacredness around connection, how
Mm.
leaders are connecting with their staff, how people are connecting with each other. You know, our phones are trying to pull us apart. It was intended that way. One of my new favorite things to do is put my phone on grayscale. Have you ever tried doing that?
No, I haven't.
It is, if you, Mel Robbins was the idea behind this. She said if you put your phone on grayscale, you go into accessibility and
Yeah,
change the color filter. If you change it, you'll reduce the time on your phone by 70%.
I can believe
70.
that.
Because there's no color. There's
Yeah.
literally no color on your phone. Everything looks dull, except depending on the aesthetic that you have for your color palette. Mine looks amazing still on there, so it's all good because it's all moody with the gold and the black and the gray. But it is, you don't want to be on there. You don't. You want to be connecting with other humans. And this
Mm.
is, people are hiding, and with social media in particular and the way that you want to present yourself, it's set up to hide. Even AI is making it easy to hide. My new favorite at the moment is seeing people posting that you know that they've been on chat gpt and they post, but you know them in real and they don't speak that way. That's my
Hmm.
absolute favorite. That to me is a lack of integrity. That to
Yeah.
me is, you are deceiving people. It doesn't mean you can't use chat gpt for ideas or to um, tweak or
Yes.
reposition what you're saying, but it needs to be you.
At the end of
You
the
know,
day, it's still a tool.
yeah.
Yes, we can train it these days and it can sound very, very close, but the nuances,
Yeah.
they still need to be applied. Absolutely.
And those things help stop the wound, that wounding feeling, that
Mm.
one of, if I put myself out there, I'm going to be burnt to a stake. That remembering, it stops all of that. Right. So the more you're anchored into your body, the more you're thinking, and the more you're considered, the more you're feeling every single moment of what you're doing, then that's how you get more comfortable with it. But is it a one and done situation? Is it, can I do this for a few months and it's finished? No, I'm afraid no.
Yeah,
It's not.
unfortunately not. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very interesting. And a couple of months ago, when we caught up for lunch, where you were one of our panelists, we sort of did a little bit of an outlook onto 2025. It was earlier on the year. It was March. We're now in July. Not quite sure when this podcast episode will come out, but it's the next couple of weeks. What are you sensing from this whole paradigm shift point of view, from this energetic shift? What are we going to experience for the rest of this year?
It's been really interesting because at the time when we had that lunch and I was on the panel, I said August was going to be a challenging month.
Mm.
And there was someone in the audience who, didn't feel that way and vocalized that, and that's fine. But my point about that was things were going to intensify in the world. And you can see that it has been slowly. The most significant, this sort of sets the stage, is what's happening in America. There was a talk about lack of integrity, talk about trust breaking. Three-quarters of the country voted for a man who was promising all of the things.
Mm.
And now, in the last week or so, he has broken trust so significantly that if they were to vote again, I'm not sure that the result would be the same.
Yeah.
And um, in a lot of ways, it's very good because people needed to break away from the I need a savior, someone outside of me to change this world. Um, as part of this revolution, this changing these big corporates for the highest good of all, as part of this, businesses operating in the 5D, we can't be controlled by people who are not in integrity. We're not meant to be working to pay taxes and do all these things that we're just doing willingly without question. It is, these structures are falling away. And so chaos, and this is why I love working with organizations, is the chaos that's happening has to be reset. But when you look at the world stage, at the moment, there is still plenty of chaos.
Oh.
And that chaos is just when we thought things might sort of calm down because we were going to get what we want, because we were promised all the things again, only to be disappointed and lied to. It's like being in this beautiful, abusive relationship where I promise I'll be good this time. No. Chaos continues and people are getting very disruptive. People who were quite calm and stable and not annoyed and not a tinfoil hat wearer or a conspiracy theorist, as we're to be called. There are people now who are starting to see things more transparently than they did before, but that wouldn't happen now had this chaos not happened. Exactly. And there's still more to happen for change. Things have to hit a rock bottom, and we are not there yet. What's interesting is timelines keep shifting. Just when I think I know it all, and my ego really loves that. I'll be honest with you, it does. It's like, nah. Things happen, things change, and the more what changes it is the collective. So the more collective, the more people do the internal work, it changes the timeline. And so no one can really know what's going to happen next. Right when I made that assessment about March in March about August, that's what the energy felt like then. That was my truth. That's the vision. That's what I saw. Do I still feel like that? I in this moment, I can't say no, but I can't say yes either. It feels neutral. I feel like something is brewing. I don't know what. But what I do know, what we can count on is more chaos, more disruption, but more awakening as a result of all of that. And then that leads to that transformation. The CEOs don't come to me when when their culture is high and their attrition is low. They come to me because chaos is happening. And so that's what's happening in this world as well. And so until that stabilizes, we won't know. No one outside of you knows. But you have to go in this moment, and my encouragement is stay in the present. Don't worry so much about what's going to happen. In this moment, how can you be of service? How can you embody that 5D leadership? How can you raise your integrity? How can you best show and express yourself with the most truth for your soul, for you, not for outcomes, not for followers, not for anything, but just for you. And that is what needs to be front and center. And so I wish I could, fortune tell you all the things. I have no idea at all. And I don't think anyone does.
That's right. Yeah. I think that's sort of the sentiment that I have been continuing to get from some of the people that I have been listening to. Obviously, astrologically, we can see that there are certain shifts happening when planets move into different star signs for the first time in our lifetime. Obviously, we can sense that there is some shift happening and there is some chaos and being unsettled in general. But I think your advice is really great. Just try and stay centered as much as you can, because if you do focus on all of those things, everything that we want is automatically going to fall into place. If we are acting in the highest version of ourselves, in the highest truth, then the followers will come, the money will come, the clients will come, because we're not chasing from an ego point of view, but we're actually really heart-centered, heart-led, guided by our heart. And yeah, the more anchored we are and the more time we spend in nature or do EFT or any of the practices that you have shared with us, the more we can discern when we're in the body and when we're not in our body. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, Australia is a bit behind. We're very much a slave to the government and whatever they say. We just are in full, our society is in full acceptance automatically with no challenging whatsoever. America is not like that. And so our eyes look there to see what's happening because it is it sort of trickles down and it will eventually hit Australia, but we are very behind when you look at stuff, not to get, overly into the politics side of things, but you look at the digital ID that is still pending. Soon enough, you're going to have a digital ID. They will have access to everything. But, people have a choice in every moment, but Australian people just willingly go along and, we haven't hit the revolutionary part of our country yet. And so what's it going to take, And we've already been through big crises, in 2020, we went through a very big crisis. If that happened again, would Australian people follow again? My bet is, yeah, they absolutely would. They would conform again, exactly this in the exact same way. Maybe more people would be more outspoken than they were. But still, I think the majority would still go willingly. And that's disappointing. But that's the world that we're in. That's the reality. And that's why some of the chaos isn't a bad thing because things won't change if everyone's coasting along. In that 12 months in the lead up to that near death experience, I was just coasting along. I thought everything was fine, even though it wasn't, even though I was deteriorating. But big things happen at exactly the right time, and I'm excited. I kind of am excited to see what happens next. Yeah, we'll see.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know that with us, it's very easy to just keep going, and we could be going on for days. So you have some incredible guests on your podcast. There's a couple of people that I have followed for a very long time as well. And once things are starting to slow down a little bit for me, I'm going to dive into them. They're definitely on my to listen list, that's for sure. But yeah, check out Maryanne's podcast, some really inspirational leaders, some great insights. Stephen has been on your podcast. I have been on your podcast. It's all about heart-centered leadership and how to show up differently in this world. Really thought-provoking conversations as well. So thank you so, so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. We're going to put all your links and everything into the show notes so that people can go and follow you and see what true leadership, true voice, total matching looks like in the real life and in the real world. And if this encouraged you to change something, if you are one of those big leaders, reach out to Maryanne if you want to start making some changes. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
I
so
really
much,
appreciate
Alice.
it.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
And we'll talk again very soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you.